Hey there, welcome or welcome back to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Today I want to do a video that I'm going to call my most wanted reads for 2023. It's a video idea that is a bit similar to what I did last year with books that I didn't get to in the previous year that I want to read in the new year. But last year I kind of picked up books for that list that were not ones that I was maybe so excited about, because I only picked up like 40% of the books on that list, so I wouldn't call it a successful kind of target or idea for a video. So this year I really have focused on books that I'm definitely planning on picking up. So I really hope that by the end of the year, when I reflect back, I can see that I've read most of these books and I can see whether I've liked them or not. And those are really books that I'm excited about. They've been on my radar for some time, are by favorite authors of mine or authors that I'm familiar with, or maybe new to me authors, but have kind of come up on my radar through Booktube or Bookstagram or Goodreads or whatever. So yeah, those books that I'm going to mention today are all books that I'm genuinely very excited about. So I definitely plan on picking them up. And to be honest, I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about them because I want to go in as blindly as I can. So I kind of really focus on being excited about the books without knowing what they're about, because otherwise I can get disappointed, if you get what I'm saying. So yeah, for some of the books they've been hyped up, so obviously I know something about them, but for most of them I just know a general idea or tropes that I can mention. So I'm just going to dive in and let you know what those books are. The first one is a book that I found through Storytel. I was browsing what audiobooks just recently released for me to listen to, and I found that book with this gorgeous cover. It's called We Deserve Monuments by Jess Hammonds. And this book, I know it's a young adult story. I know that it involves some kind of a romance and that there is a suspenseful situation also within the plot, but otherwise I don't know anything about it, and I want to keep it that way. I just saw the cover, and honestly, every time that I'm scrolling through what I'm in the mood for to read, I come across this cover and I'm like, I'm going to read this soon. That's why I know that I'm going to pick it up this year. So this one is definitely at the top of my list. And then another young adult story that I definitely want to pick up that I've seen going around on Bookstagram, and also I think Crystal from Crystal's Bookish Life and Tori from Novel Life have read this book as well. It's a young adult fantasy novel called BellaDonna, and it's by Adalyn Grace. It has a gorgeous cover, and I have been in the mood for some fantasy stories. I had a bit of bad luck with some fantasy books that I picked up lately, so I've kind of wanted to cleanse my palate a little bit, and then I think in February maybe I'm going to start picking up other books that are within that genre, so maybe that's the time when I'm going to pick it up, but I definitely want to pick this one up as well. Moving on, I definitely want to work through the backlist of one of my favorite authors, my all-time favorite authors, Kennedy Ryan. I have read quite a few books off of her backlist, but I haven't yet read the duology, which is The Kingmaker and The Rebel King. And I have read Queen Move, which is a book where the two main characters from this series, they make appearances in Queen Move, so I am familiar with them, but I haven't read their story yet, and I'm very excited to read these two books. I don't know much about them. I do know, was it something about a pipeline? Like she's an activist and he is kind of like, is he a lawyer or is he someone who is part of this pipeline being built? So they're really very much rivals or enemies, and then for some reason they get together. I don't know much about it, to be honest, so I'm very excited to see whether I'm going to love it as much as the other books that I've read by this author, but I'm definitely picking them up. Next up, I'm going to talk about two books that have been hyped up just lately, like in the past couple of weeks. The first one being Funny Feelings by Tarah Dewitt. I have had this book on my radar for some time, but now I've seen that a lot of people have been reading it and reviewing it and giving kind of raving reviews about it, so I'm very excited about picking it up. And I just recently saw that Storytel has come up with the audio for it, so I'm going to listen to it on audio. I know that it's about a comedian who is going to have a fake relationship with her manager, who is an ex-comedian, and they have a very long relationship, like a friendship that they've had, and they're going to need to fake date, and that will eventually blossom into a friends to lovers situation basically. So this is what I know about the book. It sounds incredible. I really hope that I love it as much as everyone else has been loving it, so I'm definitely picking it up. And then I'm also going to be picking up Mile High by Liz Tomforde. This book was hyped up I think the most by Caitlin from The Love Librarian, and it's a hockey romance, and I've been loving hockey romances in the previous year, so I definitely want to see whether I'm going to have a streak continuing here. So I don't know much about it besides the fact that it's a sports romance, a hockey romance, and it involves the flight attendant who is flying on the private jet of the hockey team and one of the players. That's what I know about it. That's how I want to keep it, and I really hope that I love it as much as Caitlin. And then the next book that I want to pick up, or maybe it's a series that I'm going to be picking up, I'm going to start with the first book and see whether I'm going to continue on with it, because I'm going to be honest here, I've been hearing so many amazing things about Sophie Lark, and I've not yet picked up any of this author's works, so I definitely want to start somewhere. I just recently saw Jess from Peace Love Books talking about Ivan from her Underworld series, and if I'm not mistaken, this is the first book from that series, so I want to start off there and see whether I'm going to like it and continue on with her series. So this is going to be one of my kind of challenges and adventures within this year, to see whether Sophie Lark's books are ones that I'm going to enjoy, and I'm going to pick up other series by this author if I do. So this is definitely one that I want to pick up. So I'm very familiar with Kandi Steiner as an author. I've read other books by this author and I've loved her work, so I definitely want to read her latest series that came out last year. I think she came out with 3 books if I'm not mistaken, and then she's releasing a 4th book this year. And the first one, if I'm not mistaken, is called Blindside, so I definitely want to start off there and see whether I'm going to love the series and continue on reading it. I do have to say that I really have been on a sports romance kick in 2022, so I am still looking forward to reading more sports romance series. This one is an American football new adult, if I'm not mistaken, series, so I definitely want to pick this one up. When I think about 2022, I do have to say that I believe I read 4 or 5 books that are focused on the bookish realm. We have The Rufus Draft, Booklovers, Book Boyfriend, Did Not Finish. Those are 4 books that I read off the top of my head that were within like kind of a bookish setting. And then I saw just recently that there is a book called Nora Goes Off Script. This book is again a bookish kind of book. I'm not sure what it's about. I just read the synopsis very briefly and then I've kind of steered clear from it, but I believe the main character is either kind of an editor or has some kind of a function within the bookish world, and I am just wanting to read more such kinds of books to find out which one is going to be my favorite. I'm always eager to find out how an author is going about bringing in tropes and different kind of bookish terms within a book that is going to either work or not work for me. In some instances, like Did Not Finish, it was not the best kind of book, but I still am wondering whether I'm going to like this one, so I definitely want to pick it up. Last year I did a couple of videos, a couple of vlogs that were like my weekly vlogs that I did, and one of those vlogs was Trauma Thursday, where I focused on a book that had characters that went through some kind of a trauma. And I did a book, I think it was by Devney Perry, but before I picked that book I actually wanted to read a series. It's a duology if I'm not mistaken, by Chloe Walsh. It's called Binding 13. And because I saw that they were very long, I kind of got intimidated and left them for another time. And that other time has to come sometime this year, because I've only heard raving things about this duology, so I definitely want to pick it up. So besides the fact that it's involving some kind of a trauma, I don't know anything about this duology. The only thing that I know is that I saw that it has a very high rating, and yeah, I have the audios for them, so I'm going to pick them up on audiobook format, and once I finish them I'll let you know whether I like them. Another book that I've only heard good things about is by Katherine Center. It's called The Bodyguard, and I do have to say that I've heard a lot about the story, so I'm a bit apprehensive to see whether I'm going to love it as much as everyone else, because now I know what it's about. The book is about a woman who is a bodyguard to a famous guy. He's some kind of a Hollywood star or whatever. And this is a premise that I actually tend to like, so a bodyguard romance, but seeing as the fact that the woman is going to be the bodyguard, that's a premise that is very interesting to me. But yeah, it's traditionally published, so I have had some luck with traditionally published books last year, so I'm not afraid of that, but I really am apprehensive whenever there is hype around the book. I tend to love hyped up books, but lately I've had also some misses when it comes to hyped books, so yeah, we'll just wait out and see. I'm going to pick it up and see whether I love it. Another favorite author of mine is Penelope Douglas, and she last year came out with kind of a spin-off series which is starting with Falls Boys. It's from her Fall Away series, the spin-off. And I did not pick up that book, I just didn't get to it, and I just recently saw that Storytel is going to have the audiobook for it, so I definitely want to pick it up this year, and since I have the audiobook, I will have enough opportunity to pick it up as well. One of my favorite books of last year was by Jennifer Hartmann. It was Still Beating, and I definitely want to read more by this author. And I just recently got the ebook for Lotus, so I definitely want to read that book. I don't know much about it besides the fact that it's a dark romance and it involves a kidnapping, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know any more about it, but I definitely want to see whether I'm going to love it as much as Still Beating. The only book that I'm a little bit uncertain whether I'm going to pick up this year, because I'm very intimidated by it, is The Priory of the Orange Tree, because I did purchase a physical copy of it, by the way. It's back there where my books are, but it's just a very big book. I think it's like 700 or 800 pages, and it's a fantasy book. I've just recently, like a year ago, started to really focus on reading fantasy books, and some of them have been a success for me. Some of them have been really intimidating for me. So this is one of the ones where I'm a bit scared to start it, but I've heard only good things about it, so I definitely want to try it out. Next up, we have two books that are fitting within my challenge to read outside of the box for myself within the new year. The first one is an Omegaverse story. I have not picked up any books within the Omegaverse, and I want to see whether I'm going to understand them first of all, and then also whether I'm going to love them. The book is called Pack Darling by Lola Rock, and again, I know nothing about the plot. I've seen the cover and it looks good. I've seen people talking about this book as well and have been raving about it as well, so I really hope that I'm going to like it and understand it. And then another book that also fits within this challenge for myself is by Pam Godwin. It's called Sea of Ruin, and I know that Michae from OA Hates Michae really loves this book. It's, I think, a dark pirate romance. I have not yet any time in my past read any pirate romances, so I'm really curious to see whether I'm going to like it. And again, I know nothing about it besides the fact that it's dark and it's a pirate romance, and I think it's considered historical, if I'm not mistaken. So that is what I'm going to pick up in terms of a challenge that I want to do for myself for this year. And then I think the last book that I have on this list, actually it's two books, is by J.T. Geissinger. I've read the first two books within her Queens and Monsters series last year, and I really loved them. So I want to continue on with the series. The first book, actually the third book, is called Savage Hearts, and then the fourth book is called Brutal Vow. So I definitely want to pick up these two stories. And let me just check whether I'm missing any of the books that I have on here. Oh, actually, yes, there is a book that I'm missing, which is by Chloe Liese. Obviously, I've been a fan of the Bergman Brothers series, but she just recently released a standalone novel which is not part of that world, so I definitely want to get to that. It's called Two Wrongs Make a Right, and it's a retelling, or a loose retelling, of Much Ado About Nothing by Shakespeare. So I definitely want to see whether I'm going to love it as much as the Bergman Brothers series. And yeah, that's the last book within my list, I believe. I'm not missing out on anything. So those were all the books that are on my most wanted list. So kind of my TBR high priority TBR for 2023. I hope you enjoyed this video, that you got books on your radar that you want to pick up as well. If you've read any of the books that I just mentioned, let me know what you thought about them, but please don't spoil them for me yet. And I'll let you know what I thought about them once I finished them. I hope to see you very soon in the next one. Please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and have a wonderful, marvelous day. Happy reading. Take care, and bye-bye.